Hello, this is Cusax, and welcome to my test world. I have been enjoying a lot of looking at a lot of things that people have been building on the forums, and I've noticed a trend that while there are a lot of excellent buildings and even some interesting uses of posters and things like that, I'm not seeing a lot of people use my favorite feature of Rising World, which is the extended construction system. So I've decided to throw this tutorial together for people's reference to hopefully get this feature used more, because it is extremely powerful and extremely useful. So let's start by looking at what is available in the extended construction system. So alright, we look in here. So on the sawmill, under the one tab that's called construction, these are all the construction objects. You have the wood plank, the wooden beam, glass pane, the glass pane, and 4 types of window frames. These window frames and planks and stuff, they're all extended construction objects, and only these ones. All these other objects in here are just objects, and these objects follow different rules. While objects can be rotated only on the horizontal and will align themselves to ground and stuff at different angles, the actual construction objects give you the full range of motion. It lets you rotate it on 3 dimensions and also lets you rescale them to different sizes. So let's cover each one of these and just show you what the various limits are on each of these. Okay, so these are the different shapes and sizes you can do. So the wood plank here starts off at 1/2 block wide and 4 blocks tall. So, and it can be shrunk down to 1 block tall and 1/5 of a block wide, and can be expanded to 2 blocks wide and 4 blocks tall, same size as a door. So 1 meter by 4 meter, since each block is 1/2 meter. The thickness cannot be adjusted. But it's a good thickness. It works well. You'll find that you won't find any trouble using it. You could always stack them back to back if you need something slightly thicker. The next item was the wooden beam. They start off at 4 blocks tall and 40% of a block wide, I believe it is. I believe that's 20 centimeters. So that's that there. It is it can be shrank down to 1/5 of a block, same width as that, and 1 block tall, so 4 blocks. Now you can expand it all the way to 1 block on a side, so it's takes up a full block and goes up to 6 blocks long. So 3 meters long, 1/2 meter square on the side. This object is always square. So whatever you pick on the thing, the thickness and width are adjusted at the same time. The next object is window frames. All the window frames, regardless of style, start at 2 blocks wide, 2 blocks tall, and then they can shrink down to this, which I'm not quite sure what size that is because I've never used one that small, but it's pretty gosh darn small. I think on the inside it's the 10 centimeters. You might be able to use it as a collar around that, but I think it's 10 centimeters on the inside or something like that, or maybe 20 centimeters on the outside. I don't know. That's as small as they get. They get as big as 4 blocks by 4 blocks. So 2 meters by 2 meters is how big they are. The glass comes in the same sizes as the window frame, so you can get it all the way down the same size and do a 1-for-1 replacement. You could take out the frame and put in a window in the same place the frame is and cover the entire same ranges. I rarely ever use glass on its own, and one of the nice things the devs have put in there is that if you look at alright, so if you look at a frame that doesn't have any glass in it, it might sound like it's going to be a real big pain to put glass in there, but actually it's not. The devs have done this awesome thing. So if you see, it's all I got snapping enabled. Alright. As you can see, it's just out here and it's not lining up with the glass. All you have to do is point at the frame and it'll automatically, they will automatically snap it to the right size and orientation. The other thing to be aware of with glass is that if you can put multiple in the same frame, which increases the opacity, and this one actually increases the lines. With clear glass, it kind of adds like a tinting effect. This, of course, makes it more distorted, and slight tinting effect. But so adding multiple glass adds additional texture and or adjustments to the glass, and you can take them out one at a time. And see, now I'm back to one pane of glass. I'm going to do one more. Okay. The one quick thing you'll need for reference is where the button controls are. So while holding any one of the extended construction objects, you hit F1 and it'll bring up the key map, giving you the directionals and the various optional buttons that we'll cover in a little bit. But F1 is your friend in bringing up your help. Alright, when we come back, we'll begin looking at how to use these extended construction items. Alright, so I started building this as a example. So you can easily put planks in line with the same type of setup. I'm just trying to get it back to the default size here. There we go. Alright, so yeah, that's right. Okay, so how do you do this? Alright, well, the first thing you'll probably want to do is a fence. Fences are nice and easy, work really well and stuff, so you'll probably want to put up a fence. So you take your plank, you use the arrow keys to rotate it just like you would an object, left and right to rotate it. The other two axes are rotated with the up and down keys. That's up and down. And then finally you can use the page up, page down to rotate it on the other axis. So you get all three axes. If you get it in some weird, some weird orientation where you're like, I need to get this straightened out, use the backspace key to reset the orientation. So this is back to default, and so now I have to re-rotate it to line it up like this. Each time you rotate it, it rotates 15 degrees on that axis. So if you're doing some calculations and stuff, this will do 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90. Those are the degrees that you have access to in the construction system, which is a high degree of accuracy. For most constructions, you'll find that works excellent. I have yet to run into an issue where I didn't have a good enough angle for what I needed. So I'm sure there'll be limited cases, but that's a high degree of freedom that I haven't found in any other game. So first thing you need to know is that you can place these in a line just like you do for blocks. But one of the added features is you'll see that there are spaces between my planks back there. Well, by default, there is a slight gap between them. See that slight gap there? The next key that you need to be aware of and you want to experiment with as you're working with stuff is the plus and minus key. So while you're placing a line, if you hit plus or minus, it will change the gap in between each. It goes down. If you use the minus, you can go all the way down to nothing, where it leaves no space in between them. Or one higher than that is the default spacing, which I think is probably a centimeter, maybe 2. But and then you can go all the way up to, I believe that is maybe 20 centimeters. So it might be 10, I don't know, but that's as wide as it gets right there. So, well, for a fence, I like narrow gaps. I don't want people shooting me between my things, but I do want to be able to see if they're out there. So I want a slight gap. So you just put that in line just like you would a blocks, and right click, boom. Now I have a line, and that makes a really easy, quick fence. Each one of those is a plank. So I just set down a bunch of planks there. It's not just one plank but multiple planks I placed. One drawback of this system currently that is, according to the devs, going to be fixed is when you place them in a line like this, if you hit them, it takes out the entire line. So make sure that you pre-plan where you're going to put your gates and stuff, otherwise you're going to have to replace the entire row to put in access ways and stuff through the panes. Alright, so you can put them all in a line, and if you look, you can put them, I could put them really close to the other one, I can put them really down, and if I try to put two in a row, I would have to line them up just right. I've done this a lot because I didn't learn how to do this until my third or fourth project I was working on before I figured out there are other ways to do this. But so you can place them and boom, there. Now you have two boards, and I was close but not quite. I don't think I got them quite aligned. Yep, so but thankfully there's another way to do that. So alright, so if I have a board that I've placed and it's not in any particular location and I need to put another board on there, the easiest way to actually do that is if you use the modular snapping mode. Boom, right here. Use the enter key, and then when I point at an object, it will try to center it on whatever face I'm pointing at. So if I point on the side, it clicks it to the side. If I put it in the front, it makes it thicker. If I point to the top, it'll add it to the top. This works on other planks too. See, if I point them at these, it's making them thicker. If I point at I don't think I have anything else to point it at. Oh, there we go. If I point it at these, it tries to put it in the center of this plank, so it'll bisect that beam and stick out like that. So that's the center of the beam. Alright, so modular snapping works really good to add things, especially if you had them at odd angles and not at proper right angles, and you needed to do that. And it won't matter, like if I have a turn this way, it automatically snaps it to whatever I'm pointing at. So you can see that it's rotated like this. This is not good if you want to put it on, something perpendicular to an existing item. So the modular snapping automatically snaps it down. Now if you have different size, if I use the arrow keys and the shift key, so to resize is you use the hold shift and then use the arrow keys here. This will resize the object. Page up and page down, none of the objects as far as I know are affected by using shift page up and page down. But as I said, it tries to center it on whatever side you're looking at. Make it earlier today. Alright. So, modular snapping, very useful if you put down a plank and you need to put down more at the same angle. Boom. See? And it'll center it. No matter where I point to, it'll always make it centered. So, see how it's equal distance, both sides. Can be useful for a variety of things. Alright, let's say I want to make some stairs. Okay. And those stairs, we'll just place them off of this thing. Alright, I want my stairs short or not as wide, so I use the arrow keys to shrink that down. You'll need to play with it to figure out the nuances, but generally its length is up and down and width is, if I want to make them wider, you use left and right. So you can get them pretty narrow, but there you go. So I want to make stairs, but I don't want to just put them all willy-nilly in here. Let's be a little more precise in what we're doing. So So the next thing you want to know is the right control key, and only the right control key. If you hit it, lets you place an object and then move around and look at it. It also changes the behavior of the rotational keys, the arrow keys and the page up, page down. Instead of rotating on an axis, it moves it along that axis. So if I use up and down, it moves it away and towards me. So I can try to get it nice in position. I can use left and right and then get things lined up just right. It moves about a centimeter per I believe it's a centimeter every time you push the button. So So there you go. So that'll move it left and right, back and forth, and then page up, page down will always move it vertically. So let's get it right there. Great. Okay, so now I right click, but now, you know, I need to place more. So I'm going to manually move it over here. Alright, there we go, and then we're going to move it up. That looks good. Boom. So now I'm making stairs manually. It's kind of slow, but it does work. Let's... Now, as you can see, I now have a working stairs. Boom. Great. Awesome. But there's even better. So the last method of placing them is the grid system. The grid system is by far my favorite. So this is what we were just doing, the manual position. He locks it in place and lets you manipulate it manually. The last item is the grid, so G, right down here. The G key is probably the most powerful and lets you use the system the quickest. So I've got my plank, I unlock it. The grid system, when you turn that on, it starts like this. It's a half a block grid, and it centers it based on whatever corner you're pointing at. Boom, boom, boom. So I point it here. Boom, there we go. And it centers it vertically, horizontally, and, you know, and depth. So the reason this system is very powerful is, like, now if I want to do stairs, let's just go to this side over here, I can make this, it snaps it to this grid, so it allows me to easily repeat these things. Now you'll notice on objects, on like when it's not a block, but when you're looking at objects like planks and stuff, the grid is at one resolution higher than everything else. I don't know why. I haven't submitted it as a bug, but it is a bug. So the grid that you see on the blocks is what it's going to follow on objects still. So you see I can't get that in between vertice. That's why. Now the reason why when I'm pointing at this, it's trying to end this on the last vertice. So you'll see that it doesn't quite connect. That's because my size doesn't line up with the grid. So I'll need to resize to get it to line up with the grid. There we go. So I've resized it. Now when I look at the vertices, it is actually lining up. So now I can just quickly go 1, 2, boom, 3, and now these are extremely regular. They're exact same distance apart. Gives me the same functionality as this, but I went a lot faster once I started using it. So let's get myself more planks and let's keep going. So I turn on the grid and boom, I can just keep going all day and make myself my own staircase. Boom, done, easy. But this half a grid, you know, this could be not as fine as you want to do. You know, if you want to place these things out here with the same distance, as you can see, this doesn't line up with the grid, but I did use the grid, so let's do it. Boom, rotate, and now use the plus and minus keys to shrink the grid. It goes from you can expand it with the plus key up to a whole block per grid. So this will only let me interact with corners of blocks, which can have some useful things like posts and stuff like that. The default is half a block. You can do quarter, eighths, sixteenths. So now if I want to match that thing over there, I can just do this. Boom. Go in a line. Even with the grid, I can combine those. Boom. Now I have this fence over here. Now, of course, this isn't the same style or the same height, but I have another one. That's just because, you know, that's how big my plank was. I, of course, because I used the grid system, I could easily align this by pointing at the top here. This is my base one. It automatically snaps it to the same grid line. So now I could just do another row. Boom. And look, see, they're perfectly aligned vertically, and now I have two sets of planks right on top of each other, and they were exactly, these are, you know, 2.5 blocks. So now my 5 block tall is all the way across. I just need to throw a block up here, and then all of a sudden I have a 5 block tall fence instead of the default 4. Very useful. See? The other thing you could do with these is you can do custom door frames. You can do walls, ceilings. You know, if you want to put a roof on something, you could use this as you can use this as the material to build your roofs, that type of thing. If we switch over to a plank, let's quickly build a door frame here. So I am going to switch the grid on. I have it on the finest resolution, and then you'll see that this door frame is not. If I do this, boom. If you see, you know, I did not put this door on the 90 degree. The objects have the same rotational, so it's the same 15-degree rotation, but they only do it on the horizontal plane. They only rotate this way. So I just have to line up my beam, and then I just line it up here. So, you know, it's going to take a little work because I want to make sure that you know, I'm not overlapping too much. A little overlap is going to be fine, but there you go. Boom. So now I've built. There we go. Boom. I now have that piece, and now I can just I'm going to fly here for a second, and then use page up, page down to rotate that. Now, don't want to use modular because it's trying to snap it end to end, trying to align it. We're going to put this guy on here. Okay, and then we're going to lock it in place. Once it's locked in place, we can do some fine adjustments to put the top piece on. So we can use page up, page down, bring it down. This is not going to line up nicely, it looks like. Oh, that's sad. But we could do. I know what the problem is there. So Alright, let's first of all get this the right distance. Okay. Alright, there we go. Still just a tad bit too long. Alright. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now let's fix the gap there. And what the gap has to do is that the grid and the width of these items sometimes does not get along. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make it thicker, and that should probably line up pretty gosh darn good. Let's see how we're doing. Yep, look at that. So you'll find that certain sizes, either in lengths of boards or thicknesses of beams, work better for grid placement because they actually line up with the grid. The grid, as I said, is on, you know, 1/8, 16ths and stuff like that, so it's never going to line up perfectly, whereas the beams and such are on decimal or on metric system, so you know it's 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50 centimeters in a cube. So you're going to have some minor variances, but now that I have that, I now have a custom door frame, and I can continue this, but now I can build, I can use planks to build walls on those angles and those types of things. It's really easy to do. Grid, boom. You can of course hold the left key to give yourself a better look, but there you go. Boom. And since I'm doing a wall, I don't want any gaps, so I'll use the minus key to get rid of gaps. And because I'm doing a wall, I don't want to use a whole bunch of planks to do this. It's going to be a solid wall, so I've extended this out, and we need to make this taller. Let's make that max height. It's going to be the same height as the door. And now, boom, boom, I now have a door, or I have a wall made out of this material. in the same angle as that door. Boom, boom. There we go. I, of course, can put post at the end. Oops, wrong button. Backspace to reset. G to turn on my grid. All depends on what I want to do. So I can make this tall. Now if I max this out, remember the beams go to 6 meters instead of 4 meters, so I'll have a little extra area up. So you would have to shrink this down, just use down and page down to shrink it down until you get it to the right height. That's going to be too short. You'll find that adjusting the grid and stuff can help you too, because yeah, the finest grid, while useful in many cases, is not always the best, because if you're placing a large amount of objects quickly, you'll want to stick to a larger grid just for ease of placement. But I place beam, and now I can continue. If I wanted to, one of the things I like to do is because the planks are much thinner than blocks and stuff, you could add 2 different materials. So you can make the outside one, and you can make the inside a different. So you get that 2 tones, so you can have an outside texture and an inside texture. Very useful, especially for floors and ceilings and stuff like that. Very nice. I will warn you that if you overlap these objects, there is a chance they will bug and not be able to be removed. It's been reported to the devs, and they're working on it. The second bug is that if you use the extended constructions for floors, sometimes when you place objects like crafting stations and chests, they also will not work and will not be able to be removed. These are bugs that the devs are working on and aware of, but just something to be aware of when you're working on it. So you might want to, stick to blocks for your floors, and then use planks and such to retexture your ceilings or whatever. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my tutorial on the extended construction systems, and I hope that you find value in the various ways you can use this system to build complex items quickly and with great detail. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will, of course, continue to monitor that and stuff. I'm not really good at this tutorial stuff and all the talking, so I'll probably leave it to others in the future, but I saw a great need and wanted to get this out there. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. Leave me any comments and questions below, and I will try to address them as they come up. Have a good one.